How's it going, everybody? This podcast is brought to you by Rise Make Life Workout, a health, self-development, and lifestyle platform building a passionate community of knowledge seekers, creative dreamers, and future leaders.
For details on the latest Rise event that will feature expert speakers in the field of self-development and growth, check out www.rise-workout.com.
That's www.rise-workout.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Rise Optimise, where we make science simple to help you optimise your health. My name's Sinead, and today I'm joined by nutritionist and public health practitioner Amanda Brien. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Sinead.
Awesome to have you here. I'm really looking forward to picking your brain today and diving into a bit of nutrition science with you.
Cool, let's go.
Yeah. So as it's your first time on the show, and in case people haven't heard you or seen you before, do you want to give a little intro as to what you do and what your background is?
Sure. Kia ora koutou. My name's Amanda Brien, and as Sinead mentioned, I'm a registered nutritionist, and my career has largely had a focus in the public health space. So what that means is it's more working at that population level, looking at programs, looking at the environment and policy, how that affects our food choices and shapes our lifestyles. But I also have practiced clinically, so I have worked in GP clinics, helping people manage lifestyle conditions, so things like diabetes, heart disease, weight, iron deficiency, all kinds of nutritional things.
Yeah, awesome. And how long now have you been in the nutrition?
Oh, it's kind of scary to count that stuff up. My friends and I over the holidays realised it's 20 years since we finished high school, so if you throw uni in there, I think I've been practicing for probably a good 15 years now.
Far out. Wow, that's amazing. So you would have seen and heard a lot over those years in regards to, I guess, as science changes and we learn more and things like that.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that's really tricky and can be confusing, because in the food and nutrition space, like reflecting back on what I learned at university, like all the science and all the metabolism, physiology, how our bodies operate, that hasn't really changed a lot, but our food environment has changed hugely in that time. And I guess a tricky thing with science, as you've probably already discussed in this show, you can probably find a study or a paper to support any viewpoint, but what counts is the body of evidence, and that's really, really important when it comes to health and nutrition.
Yeah, especially when it comes to different diets, I'm sure. Yeah, it would be interesting to see a panel, I think, of every different diet and someone supporting. I'm sure they would be able to say, like, you know, carnivore's the best and vegan's the best or paleo's the best. And
yeah, and it might be for different people and in different situations, but it's not a one size fits all when it comes to health. You've got to think about food availability, cultural preferences, health conditions, all that type of stuff. So, I mean, a food pattern you might be following now could be not so good in like 20 years time, because as we age, different things happen in our body, and like, for example, our protein requirements go up. So yeah
definitely. And now we're roughly, I guess, 2 months into the new year, and it's common for people to have set New Year's resolutions or goals around their health and specifically their diet. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear that about 80 to 95% of dieters end up regaining the weight that they lose on a diet. And yeah, I find that quite interesting, and I was wondering if you'd be able to touch on where maybe you see that people commonly go wrong when they're dieting, or if it's the diet that's wrong when they're trying to improve their eating habits.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but yeah, I think there is a pretty high failure rate when it comes to people sticking to their New Year's resolution, whether it be diet or some other change they're trying to make in their life. And I guess from what I've heard and seen, and from what I know when I was working in clinical settings, I think people kind of pick New Year's as like some magical point in time where the next day you're going to wake up and everything's going to be different. But I mean, unfortunately, things don't work like that. And when we're trying to make dietary or lifestyle changes, it's really important that we're kind of in the right mindset. And you've probably heard there's like different theories of change about when you're pre-contemplating a change, or when you're ready for the change, when you're ready to take action. And that might not necessarily line up with the 31st of December, the 1st of January. So if we don't have the resources around us, whether it's like the knowledge to implement a new diet, the cooking skills, the access to the food, or the motivation, or we don't have the time because we're still on holiday and we're not at our normal house or in our normal routine, that can kind of set us up for failure at the beginning. And no matter, that excitement of the new year that you might have, it's really hard if you don't have all those other things in place to help you make those changes.
I always have found that probably the biggest thing in regards to New Year's resolutions is that so often, sometimes you are still on holidays till mid-Jan or maybe until the start of Feb, that you're still, traveling around, or like you said, you're not at home, you're not in your usual routine. You might be eating out more, and I think picking that time of year to think, I'm going to change my diet and lifestyle. I think it's like you said, probably somewhat setting yourself up for failure before you've even started.
Absolutely, and I mean it can be really frustrating. You can have the best of intentions, but I mean you might be still on holiday and being able to experience amazing food that you might not have at home, or most importantly, like be around people and have experiences. So I think those things should be celebrated more, not that you didn't have X amount of carbohydrate or X amount of fat, or you ate at this time when you weren't supposed to, and like feeling really bad about yourself.
So what do you feel is probably a more, optimal or sustainable way for people to sort of optimize their eating if they are wanting to sort of change their eating habits or want to sort of eat more healthily?
I think it's always good to be thinking about how we can improve. That's like a really good mindset to have. I think it's really important that, like I said before, you've got those good foundations, you've got the support around you to help you, because nutrition and food is really complicated, and in this day and age with social media, the world of influencers, there's so much information out there. It can be hard to kind of see the wood for the trees with so much information out there. So I think it's a really good idea to really think about, like you said, your why. Why do you want to change? Is it just because it's the magic of New Year, or do you have like a particular goal in mind? Is it something around improving some health outcomes, or is it something like feeling better about yourself, wanting to have more energy to play with your kids, things like that? Because often for people, if it is just, trying to reach a number on a scale, or because your doctor or a nurse told you that you need to lower your blood pressure, like sometimes, that can kickstart people, but other times it might not be enough of a motivator. I know when I worked in the UK, I was working on a community weight management program, and what we saw, if people had two ways they could come onto our program. They could be referred by their doctor for, as I mentioned, like high blood pressure, weight, those types of things, or they could self-refer. And what we were seeing in the program was that the people who self-referred, they had a lot better outcomes because they were really motivated, they were really committed that like now was the right time for them. So what we did was we introduced a screening before our program, where we just have like a one-on-one chat with someone, try and find out what their goals were, what else was happening in their life at the same time, and kind of if there were other things happening, like, I don't know, they started a new job, or they had stuff going at home with their kids and their family where they might not be able to commit to this change at this point in time, we would have some honest conversations with them, kind of, I guess, challenging them, was it the right time to change? And if it wasn't, then we'd always like welcome them back when they were ready to change. And I mean, if they were convinced that they could do it, that was cool, we'd still let them on the program, but normally the results wouldn't be as good as those people who were in that really motivated, action-focused time.
Yeah, who already sort of had that mindset of I'm committed to this and I'm focused 100% on it. Yeah. And in those sort of programs, is it similar in that you are focusing on sort of small, simple changes that people can gradually implement versus this is your diet that you have to follow and stick to as of today?
Absolutely. So what we would be doing would be getting people to reflect on where they're at now. So it can seem a bit tedious, but keeping a food diary, you can write it down, you can use apps, because you need to really take stock of where you are now. Because I think another issue with people just like picking keto or paleo or vegan, whatever diet is out there, like that could be really far away from where they're starting now. So the changes could be really, really huge, and that could be really hard. Whereas if you look at where your diet is now even without having a dietitian or nutritionist look at it with you, you could probably identify small things that you could improve over time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so that's what we would work on in the program. It would be not telling people what to eat, but it would be improving their knowledge and understanding of food. So what is food made up of, portion sizes, how to read food labels and not be misled by all the marketing. So it was really, really practical skills that we would teach them and just coach and support them through, even if it was just one change a week.
Yeah, it sounds like creating a bit of awareness first of all of what they already are eating and where their habits are at, and like you said, sort of one change a week. What would be, if you had to give like a few sort of simple changes that you think?
My favourite one is, and it's probably the most nutritionist one you might expect to hear from me, but eat more vegetables, add more fruit. That is like the one thing that is consistent across all of the diets out there, is that we should be eating more whole plant foods.
Yeah, more
except maybe
foods.
The carnivore kind of diet, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, in New Zealand we are not eating enough fruit and vegetable. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's something like only a third of New Zealanders are eating the recommended servings of fruit and vegetable per day.
And do you think for some parts of New Zealand that may be due to, like you said, food availability and access to healthy food?
Absolutely. Like our food environments, like you don't see fruit and vegetable stalls out there. There's just lots of takeaways, junk foods. Dairies kind of just sell like soft drinks and ice
hot
blocks.
pies, sausage roll.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not normally the most convenient choice, but I guess your one tip would be, I would just encourage you, if you're thinking about wanting to make healthier changes to your diet, is having a look at each of your meals and just asking yourself, could you add a piece of fruit or a vegetable into that meal? Yeah.
And I think that's a good focus to have on adding something versus, I think often they can receive dietary advice that's no more chocolate, no more ice cream, no more takeaways, no more this, and it can feel quite restrictive to the point you think, well, what can I have?
Yeah.
But like you said, by having that focus of adding more fruit, adding more vegetables, you're not focusing on taking away things necessarily, but you may find over time by, for example, adding more vegetables to your dinner, that you are more satiated and full afterwards, that you probably might not crave as much ice cream or chocolate or dessert after dinner by filling up more with
vegetables. And it's like fruit and vegetables really full of fibre, so that's a component of food that does help to fill us up.
Yeah, awesome.
I might just add in, so it doesn't always have to be just fresh fruit and vegetable, and I know at the moment like the cost is quite prohibitive. My sister sent me a Snapchat the other day of a lettuce being like $5.80. So doesn't have to be fresh. It can be frozen. It can be tinned. Whatever you've got available to you, any sort of fruit or vegetable is going to be a great addition to your meal.
Yeah, and that can also be a lot more convenient by throwing in, you're going to get a lot more variety if you've got a mixed bag of vegetables than, like you said, having to buy all of those different vegetables and prep them all and whatnot. Even last week, broccoli was $4 each, and they looked terrible. I was like, I don't even know if I want to buy you broccolis because you look terrible, and you're $4 each. So.
Yeah, and like some of those frozen mixes from the supermarket can be really great because it's taken all the effort out of you chopping, having to buy them all individually. So that can be a really great thing to always make sure you've got in your freezer.
Yeah, epic. So more whole foods, less processed foods.
Yeah.
That's a big take.
And I think that's the thing. People underestimate the power of making those small changes, and it doesn't have to be some fancy diet where you become part of this tribe that you're a keto warrior or whatever.
Yeah. And like you've said, sort of focusing on maybe one of those small simple changes is for the first week or two of just focusing on adding more vegetables to maybe just your dinner, and then in 2 weeks' time it might be, hey, how can I add more fruit or vegetable to my breakfast and going from there.
Or snacks as well. I honestly think when I was doing clinics, I could almost cut and paste my notes from each patient, and the first action point would be like, eat more fruit and vegetables. So,
Awesome. Cool. I think, and as well, there's probably lots of little things we've touched on there that I'm sure we can probably delve into in future episodes as well, and get a bit deeper into certain food science, which would be super valuable, I think, for everyone listening in.
Cool.
If people have any more questions or they want to hear more about nutrition, where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me on Instagram's probably the best. So it's at Amanda.8. So not the number 8, but like 8 food, ATE.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you always share a bit of what you're eating as well, which is always cool to see. You're always
A little bit. Yeah, I wish I had more time to do that, but anyway, that's
Yeah.
when I can.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us today, Amanda, and we look forward to having you back in the future.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome.